So to discuss Trudeau's resignation after 11 years as leader of the Liberal Party and extreme weather conditions in the US as massive winter storms continue to sweep across the country is Dr. Marek Laskiewicz, a RISE International analyst. Hi, Dr. Laskiewicz. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, so the resignation by the Liberal Trudeau leader is, of course, to be expected. It's now been some time since he was very popular, years in fact, and his popularity has been going down steadily, and so the resignation was not a surprise. And he has done so with a very tactically adroit move of giving the Liberals 10 weeks to get the act together with the new leader. So it was not a surprise in the end.
Okay, so you say it's not a surprise and that in fact it was expected by a lot of people in the political spheres, but what infighting, what issues do you think arose that made this resignation inevitable?
Oh, the actual reason is a worldwide, interestingly enough. Throughout the whole world, the far right is gaining and Trudeau's on the left. And what has happened is, you look at Austria, for example, there's another example, and his policies, which were all the rage 10 years ago, with very progressive policies, are now not liked by the voters. That's quite clear in Canada for the same reason as other places. And therefore, that was the real problem for him. Also, he seemed to have run out of oomph, if I can put it in that way. Whereas a new leader will come in with some new ideas, and it will revitalize the Liberal Party. He had come down to a very small fraction of the electorate which was in its polls supporting him, and so it is indeed time for him to leave.
So in his resignation speech, he mentioned stepping down to bring the temperature down. Do you think that his resignation will in fact reduce political tensions?
Yes, because he, as a figure, as a leader, there was a great deal of tension with him if he wanted to stay on. And whoever wins will have the initial bounce effect of people, honeymoon period, if you like, as well. And during that period, the tensions will disappear. The key problem will be the election. If the Liberals are trounced, which at present would appear to be the case, the new leader will indeed come under criticism. So therefore, the tensions might well return in the medium term, but not in the short term. I expect them to disappear or to be very much reduced.
So his resignation comes after the finance minister, Chrystia Freeland, also resigned. To me, it seems like there are a lot of moving parts in Canadian politics. What do you think this means for the Liberal Party and for Canadians?
I think the resignation was a tactical political move myself. I think that the minister concerned had his eye on becoming leader. That's how I read it. And in that case, as you rightly put it, there are a great deal of internal maneuvering. But now it's all going to come into the open, because now that people are candidates for Trudeau's position, it follows that the maneuvering disappears and it becomes a straight outward fight.
And now that he's waiting for the Canadian Party to choose a new leader, this puts a few things on pause, like Parliament is not going to resume till March. I'm thinking about the citizens who these decisions affect greatly. What is their fate at this time?
As you say, everything we put on pause. Even if Trudeau wanted to do something, he's now a lame duck, and therefore he won't achieve very much. And what this means is that, as you put it, it's going to go into suspension until Parliament returns, until the next elections above all. And so therefore, for the next few weeks, Canada is, so to speak, out of the running as a serious contender for any international maneuvering or strategy or whatever. It's quite normal in democracies for a period like this to exist. And so therefore, it's not unusual. But even so, as you say, many voters may feel a little bit frustrated that nothing happens for a while.
Okay. Let's talk a bit about Trudeau's legacy. What stands out positively? What do you think posterity will remember him for?
It's progressive politics. Canada was was for many years seen as a rather staid country, conservative with a small c. And what Trudeau did was revitalized it. He made it not exactly center stage, but his policies on ecology, for example, I think that will stay. And I believe his progressive movements by bringing more people into the whole democratic processes will stay. The key problem he had about immigration is not only his problem, other leaders have wrestled with this problem as well. And I think that on the whole, it was a refreshing 10 years for him to be in power, simply as an alternative to the previous decades when, as I say, nothing much happened in Canada. It was seen as a rather small state country in that way. Not small physically, of course, but small in the sense of its geopolitical presence.
Yes, I'll definitely say that under his leadership, Canada has seen intense development. Speaking from a Nigerian standpoint, the migration policies have been amazing, and I'll say they've done a great job in developing the Canadian economy. So let's move on now to how this will affect Canada's rapport with its other international partners. You mentioned something about Canada being, in quotes, out of the game. Do you think that that will affect its relationships, especially with America?
Well, the thing here is that Canada had a very clear voice on the Ukraine issue, and the fact it will be muted means that Trump's voice will be all the stronger. Actually, Trump never really liked Trudeau and never rated him, so I don't think Trudeau would have had any influence on Trump. But then again, I honestly doubt that anybody has much influence on Trump in that respect. He's a very America first person. And so the real effect of it is, in international terms, is that, so to speak, yet one more country is not at present fully engaged internationally, leaving Trump with a very clear field. Austria is another one, for example, which is also no longer interested in the Ukraine issue and is more interested in sort of issues which brought down Trudeau, of course.
So my next question is twofold. Moving on now, what are the next steps for Canada? What kind of leader do you think the Liberal Party needs to unite the politicians and, be more progressive? And also, what kind of prime minister should we be looking at for Canada following what Trudeau has done?
Well, we're quite clear what's going to happen. Canada's going to shift to the right. It's shifting, so to speak, in terms of what the voters want. And therefore, as it stands, the Conservatives will win by a landslide. So it's quite clear what the Liberals have to do is pick somebody who's centre-left as opposed to far-left, if I may draw such a distinction. And therefore, whoever can espouse policies which are close to the centre as opposed to being progressive is more likely to emerge as the winner of the next, for the candidacy of the leading the Liberal Party, and also would stand some sort of chance of winning the election. Therefore, I don't perceive the progressive policies which Trudeau espoused and which you mentioned just now as for the time being going forwards. Quite the opposite. There will be non-progressive policies for some time.
Now, Dr. Marek, let's go across the pond now to the United States of America. Reports are reaching us saying there are extreme weather conditions that are affecting travel plans and even causing a number of health issues for citizens. Do you have any opinions on this?
The interesting fact is whether or not this has anything to do with global warming. Obviously, adherents of seeing the threat of global warming will say it is, others say it isn't. Certainly, it is a very strong storm. On the other hand, we mustn't go overboard. The key point to remember is that there have been storms and snowstorms in America before, and this is just one more like it. So therefore, although it is severe, it will not really damage the American economy very much as it stands. If, on the other hand, it were to continue for a long time, that indeed would not only be less precedented, but would in fact impact on the American economy. But as it stands, it's just early days yet.
It's just early days, yes, definitely, but with grave impact. I'm hoping that things don't go bad, don't go worse than they currently are. Do you have any advice for Americans considering this situation?
Well, Americans are fortunately in a position where they have to cope. It's snow. Other countries have been buried by snow before, Russia is an example, or for that matter, Poland. And it is true that it will, of course, may in fact impact on the economy, but not initially. America is, of course, a very well-developed country. And so I would imagine the key point at present is for the Americans not in any way to be over-worried, but rather cope as best they can. And there's a good chance the storm will disappear and afterwards things will get back to normal. As I said, the only real problem is, were it to last?
Thank you very much, Dr. Mark, for joining us. That's as much as we can take right now.